So I suggest that we start the meeting. Good morning again, afternoon, evening to wherever you are. Great to see you all joining this call, and I hope that you're all safe and well. It gives me great pleasure to moderate this TAP members call. My name is Peter van Sluis. I'm one of the two co-chairs of the TAP steering committee, as you know, and I'm joined in this call by my colleague Judith, who's also on the call. The meeting is called to brief you on TAP's recent activities around engagement with you, our members, and with our TAP partners. And we will touch upon a number of issues as stipulated in the agenda that was shared before this meeting. First, I will give you a little bit of a background on the rationale for the membership refresh that we have recently started, and that is still ongoing until the middle of this month. And next to that, the Secretariat Coordinator, John, will take us through some of the key headlines of what you have told us and how you would want to engage with the network. As a third element on the agenda, I mean, you have seen the agenda in the email that was sent a little while ago. We plan to have an open dialogue with you as TAP members and how you want to follow up on the outcomes of the engagement survey, but also how you see concrete steps taking shape for outreach and engagement with the network. And then I suggest that we indeed close the meeting with any other business segment for any other business that you would want to share here with us. But first, a little bit on the background for the membership refresh. As informed through the various communications, the steering committee of the TAP network has been looking for ways to improve membership engagement and to solidify and bolster engagement of members and partners within the network, and to see how we can actually find ways to strengthen the engagement of you as members to the network, and also at the same time service you better as both the steering committee and as a secretariat. So for that, we shared a membership engagement survey earlier this year, and John will come back to that later. But first of all, thank you to all who have participated in that survey and providing us with great ideas for indeed further bolster membership engagement and find ways to structure that engagement in a better way. Before going to the outcomes of that survey, I think it's good to allude also a little bit on the membership refresh as a second part of that exercise. So besides both hearing from you on engagement opportunities and what an ideal membership structure would look like, it is also dependent, of course, on the active engagement from organizations that are part of the TAP network. And it was felt that within the wide membership of the network, there are some organizations which are very active, which are at the forefront of what the TAP network is doing, and some organizations are more inactive or a little bit dormant. And that can have, of course, various reasons. They can have reasons for just, agreeing to just read what the network is doing, or having other priorities which is preventing these members to actually be engaged. But I think for us to tailor the ideal strategy for membership engagement, we need to hear from you, and that's the reason why we indeed reached out to you as members to actually hear from you how you would want to see that engagement being structured. So that will then guide us also in seeing, okay, how many members is the network comprised of, and how do we service these best, and how do we organize that? And in identifying which organizations are still active or want to be reactivated within the context of the network, we did this membership refresh, and this is a kind of a novel thing. It gives us an insight on which organizations are still dedicated and engaged in TAP's work, which organizations are indeed catalyzed and tickled by this membership refresh to actually become more active, and then subsequently can also be contacted to discuss engagement opportunities with you. As I said in the beginning, this membership refresh will conclude by the middle of this month, and a reminder for all those members who haven't filled out the form, please do so, because there's also a strict cutoff date, so to say. I mean, we as steering committee members have said that we need to have clarity before the end of the year, also to give shape and form to the plans for 2021, to know how the network is, what the composition of the network is, which of the organizations in the network want to become actively engaged or have plans for engagement in context of the TAP network, and then subsequently structure plans for providing support and service to that. So in follow-up to the membership refresh and the actual seeing a full-fledged situation report from the Secretariat in terms of what does this give us in terms of the members and partners of the network. The steering committee will then subsequently focus on how to give ways to improve the engagement and ownership of TAP members going forward. But this meeting is a kind of in-between step. And the in-between step is needed for you as members to also provide us with some further feedback and ideas, which will then also catalyze further thinking within the steering committee to respond to that. So I think this is an introduction on the membership refresh and linked to the membership engagement consultation and why we're having this meeting. I think it would be good to now first maybe go over to John to say the key, or to share with you the key takeaways from the TAP consultation related to how you see membership engagement taking shape and the suggestions that have been coming forward out of that. John, can I give you the word, please?
Great. Yep. Thanks, Peter. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. Yeah, as Peter mentioned, obviously you all have engaged on this topic before through that survey. I know that many of you filled out that survey earlier in the year. As Peter mentioned, there were a lot of really diverse comments ranging from just providing feedback on your previous experience up to this point, to some of you actually providing some really concrete suggestions and recommendations for us to consider taking forward in the months ahead. And so we're grateful for all of your inputs over those few months that we had that survey open. I'll just give you a little bit of a background on some of the things that were highlighted from that consultation. I'll share with you in the chat box here. We also released a synthesis report, which basically summarizes the outcomes and some of the main points from that consultation. And then also we released the detailed inputs from that consultation, which basically includes all of the data and a summary of each survey question. So if you're really interested and want to dig into the details, you can access that document as well. But I'll speak in general terms about some of the things that we found from this consultation to be some of the key emerging trends and really helpful recommendations that might helpfully help you all frame the discussion in the open dialogue subsequently in this call. So I think overwhelmingly the respondents to the survey indicated that they were interested in being more involved with TAP's work going forward. There was an emphasis on, how do we encourage more bottom-up engagement from the members themselves, And I think with any, functioning and effective network, I mean, that is always the biggest challenge, especially in today's digital world. Um, I think the next point, I mean, really it's a general desire from the membership to be included directly in TAP's work. And I think that also includes, we focused in the beginning of the year as the steering committee and the secretariat on some of the opportunities that we could provide for engagement. But I think one of the messages that came clearly from this consultation is that many colleagues wanted to be involved in some of that work from the ground up. So instead of us providing opportunities for engagement, there was also the need for colleagues to actually kind of almost meet us in the middle, where members can start some of their own work, and how does that feed up into the work, at the global level with TAP. Again, a perpetual challenge for any network like ours. Another point was that, colleagues would like to see TAP kind of playing a better role in facilitation between TAP members and partners. So there's obviously a lot to be said about engaging in TAP's work and including bottom-up engagement. But as of now, I think we haven't done as much work to support you all connecting with your fellow TAP members. And again, with a network like ours, that should be one of the added values that we can provide, is connecting like-minded organizations with one another and exploring potential partnerships going forward. So that's another challenge for us, but something that came out strongly from the consultation as well. Another thing that came out from that consultation was that many of you wanted more opportunities for, again, sharing with one another, but also sharing the work that your organization is doing. So having platforms for engaging with one another, but also learning from one another. And so those, I think, are somewhat different. Having platforms for engagement can go a long way towards having platforms for learning. But the learning element, I think, is also something that is kind of a peer-to-peer exercise, and I think is, very much a long-term goal for us within TAP. So figuring out ways and platforms for us to do that was also highlighted. There was the overall desire for more and better collaboration at the national and regional levels. I think this was one of the main takeaways from this consultation. I think we've done quite a bit of work with some of you at the national and regional level, but I think in a coordinated way. Many of you felt that it needed to be more institutionalized within TAP, and the opportunities needed to be a little bit clearer. And so many of you suggested, having leadership roles within the network for regional focal points or national focal points. Grateful for all of the colleagues that expressed an interest in playing that role, not just suggesting that we do it, but actually volunteering and saying that you would actually put yourselves forward for those roles if provided. I think one of the things that we also wanted to get to the bottom of through this consultation was the membership structure itself. So we have the membership structure where we have TAP members. So that's everyone that's part of the network, and you can be really actively engaged, or you can just be there for the updates and the information. But TAP members are a wide and diverse group, but have TAP partners who are our partners that really are dedicated to TAP's work, and TAP partners get special privileges as part of the network, including more direct engagement in TAP's work. And so we wanted to try and unpack, how does that look, and are you, for TAP partners, what's the level of satisfaction with the engagement to date? And I think that was also an area that we need to take a look at subsequently. After this membership refresh, we'll turn our focus to improving the TAP partnership structure as well, and ensure that it's more responsive to what TAP partners really feel they would like to get out of that structure as well. And then I think really finally, at the global level, there was a desire for more global advocacy opportunities. So this joint advocacy that TAP kind of made its name on in the early stages of our network's development. There was a desire again to really start that up. I think one of the main examples was from the Rome Civil Society Declaration on SDG 16 plus from 2019. Many of you saw that as a really great opportunity to engage with and wanted to see more opportunities like that going forward. And then finally, again, just hitting on the point that many of you wanted to see maybe more opportunities for leadership and ownership within TAP, such as leading or engaging in working groups, or maybe some other leadership opportunities related to the network itself, like regional focal points or national focal points, for example. So there were many ideas on that front. And so I think that signals to us that there is still a strong desire to get to actually be engaged in the work of TAP for those that responded to the survey, at least. So there's a lot that we have in store over the coming weeks and months ahead, as Peter mentioned, based on that consultation and also the discussion on this call as well. The steering committee and the secretariat will work to basically lay this out. What needs to happen? What are the next steps concretely? What are the means that we can engage with all of you, but again, still create more bottom-up ownership and engagement from all of you, while still also maintaining somewhat flexible in the membership structure to ensure that colleagues that don't have the time necessarily to engage as deeply as others can still be part of the network and still contribute in their own ways and still get the updates and information that we provide. So looking forward to the interactive discussion to hear some of your ideas and trying to figure this out with the steering committee on how does this look like? How does this membership refresh look like in the weeks ahead? But also happy to answer any questions during the interactive session for you, Peter, or for any of you in the discussion.
Thank you, John, for that recap of what came out of the membership engagement survey. I think that is a rich harvest of many ideas and many opportunities for enhanced or stronger engagement with our members. I suggest that we first open up for maybe questions people might have or clarifications of points that are unclear before going into the what and the how. I mean, to me, what you described as a summary of the survey results is both a very clear indication on a wish to more directly engagement opportunities for members as coming out of the survey results, bottom-up approach, but also in the how element that there's also suggestions made for how that can potentially take shape at the national or the regional level. But let's first open up for any questions participants in this call might have to either John or me on what is being presented before going into some open discussion areas. Arjun, you can unmute yourself and comment, please.
And John for organizing this important meeting. My question is regarding the membership category. Do you have any membership category like as a national platform or NGOs, so a regional or any that kinds of category within the membership? Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun, for the question. Any other person who wants to raise questions, please raise your hand and indicate or unmute yourself if I don't see a raised hand, if you don't see the ability to raise the hand in the participant list. John, you want to take this question?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Arjun, for your question. We don't have a separate category for national or regional CSO platforms. Basically, the membership criteria for being part of TAP currently is that you have to be a civil society organization, an NGO, an independent NGO, and that can include ranging from small grassroots NGOs all the way to international NGOs, and we also have members as networks themselves. So we don't count the individual members of those networks as TAP members, but instead just the network as an entity. So in terms of membership, everyone is on the same level there. So we don't have separate categories currently, and I think it's a bit. I think it's an open question about how we handle being a network of networks. I'm sure many of us that are part of networks have this similar structure as well.
Arjun, does that answer your question? I see you still see your hand up. You want to lower your hand, or you have a follow-up question?
Just to be a bit clear, sometimes it's as a national platform, as I am working the NGO Federation of Nepal, is a member of the NGOs, is a platform of the NGOs. So sometime if our members join the TAP network and the NGO Federation itself a member, so I don't know, it's some organization like ADA and ADN, they only they select the member as a national platform, they don't go the again member to our members. So just I have to I have to give you these examples. So the second question, what about this membership fee or anything else regarding to update the members?
Allow me to respond to that, because I think there's two levels of I mean, the membership. We all are members of the TAP network, but we also are engaged in different kind of networks. But I think that the challenge, or also the opportunity for this membership refresh and the membership engagement survey, is to also see and map out in how the membership of the TAP network is distributed across the globe, and to see who of the members, for instance, has presence in Nepal. And if you then want to coordinate actions within the context of Nepal, you can then better see who is active there or who is engaged in programming activities in Nepal. To bring those together at the national level and potentially also at the regional level is then a subsequent next step to consider, I would say. Let me move on to Betty. You have your hand up, please. Please unmute yourself and ask your question or comment.
Yes, thank you. So my question, John, you mentioned that there was some comments regarding doing a more global presence again, like you did in the early days. So I have a two-part, I guess, question to that is, one is, how do you envision doing that? And the second part of my question is, in the early days during the open-ended working group and the post-2015 negotiations, TAP really played a very active role about the role of civil society and their participation, the P in TAP. And over the years, it's moved much more to just focusing on peace and security part of Goal 16. And I just wonder if, when you're thinking about moving towards the global, if you might be, since there's been such shrinking space within the UN and before COVID and now since COVID, if the steering committee is thinking it all along those lines again. Thank you.
John, you want to respond to Betty?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Betty. Those are good questions. In terms of how we approach the global advocacy side of things going forward, I mean, I think this is an open question for members as well. I mean, our default response to that is that we can continue with the same processes that we've had going forward for developing global advocacy products. So we try and do that through an open and transparent process. But I think one of the things that we want to do is improve upon that going forward and actually have some of that advocacy be led by members themselves. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about having a secretariat to help coordinate some of that, some of those things. But I think one of the things that we heard from the survey was that people were interested in different levels of advocacy. So maybe some were interested in HLPF advocacy, for example, while some were also interested in regional or national level advocacy. So I think we're going to have a discussion on what's the level of advocacy that we want to engage in, and depending on that, how do we actually approach that? So one thing that we have talked about is having kind of a global advocacy working group, for example. So for those that are really interested in that global advocacy, can really come together and decide like what is our approach, how do we do it, and then actually put processes forward. Because again, all of the global advocacy up to this point has been coordinated from the Secretariat's perspective, and then the opportunity has been given to members to contribute. But instead, how do we kind of meet in the middle where, we can play a role here in New York, for example, coordinating advocacy in the Secretariat, but then how do we identify opportunities that members might see that we might not see from the global level, for example. But in terms of the engagement and the discussions around participation at the UN, yeah, we have been really engaged in the HLPF reform discussions, and those discussions will also carry over into next year, the negotiations. So I expect that we'll kind of revamp our advocacy in early next year around the HLPF reform negotiations. But then we also have worked, we've been in discussions with other big global networks working on the SDGs about this very topic, about how to ensure that digital engagement in COVID times are really transparent and as participatory as they're made out to be. It's not easy, but yeah, we've started to have discussions with other platforms on how we come together as big global networks and really push for that. So that's another thing, again, that we'll have coming up in the months ahead.
May I ask just a follow-up question to that, what you just said, John, please? I know that I've heard from people on the MGOS steering committee that there had been some encouragement for TAP to join it, and TAP has kind of resisted joining it. In light of what you are just now saying is about the UN reform and the HLPF reform, might TAP reconsider that and take a more active role?
In terms of, major groups and other stakeholders, I mean, we haven't necessarily actively rejected engaging with that group, but actually this dates back a few years where we actually applied to be a part of the steering group of the major groups and other stakeholders. And then there was a transition in co-chairs, and they didn't end up addressing our application. But anyways, I think engaging with the major groups and other stakeholders through the HLPF reform negotiations, we'll continue to do that. In terms of playing a leadership role, I think that's really up to the current steering committee, but I think there's generally a feeling that maybe that group is it's already a big group, and they may not want to expand the leadership role there, since we still have a request outstanding. But So we will continue to engage with the major groups and other stakeholders through the HLPF reform negotiation, but we also have been working with, Action for Sustainable Development and Together 2030 and Forest, some of the other big global networks that kind of, fill that space outside of the major groups and other stakeholders as well.
Thank you, John. Moving over to Marianne. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Right. Hi, John. Hello, Peter. Good to see you. I have a question regarding my position. First of all, let me say that I appreciate what TAP is doing, and it's very valuable for me to follow your work. But I'm a bit in a specific situation. Maybe you already talked about it and I missed it because I came in a bit late. I'm a researcher and I work in a research institution, and my institute doesn't do any institutional memberships and they don't do advocacy work. So we also don't sign any, letters to anybody as an institution. So for me, it would be very good to remain an individual member. I hope that's still possible. And in that context, I just wanted to say that I will continue to work, as John knows, on the HLPF review. And while my institution is not doing any advocacy work, I'm happy to inform any advocacy work with the work I do, the analytical work and the recommendations we develop in the context of our research project on the HLPF review. So, if there's anything I can do in that regard, when the process takes on again in December, January, I hope happy to do so. And the little question I wanted to ask is, John, you send around emails on a survey and a form, and I got a little bit confused because how do I know? I know I filled one of those. Is it two different ones? And if so, how do I find out whether I already filled the form that you ask now to fill us until Monday 16? Sorry about that.
John, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. Yeah, to the question about the TAP membership for organizations or institutions that don't usually do that sort of thing. One thing that we have discussed previously, something that we haven't done yet and may do going forward, is that we haven't ever had a dedicated external outreach listserv, for example. So we've gotten many questions over the past few years about, even from UN organizations or international organizations who aren't civil society and can't join the network and therefore don't get our updates. How maybe the possibility of having a separate external engagement listserv where those types of institutions can still sign up for our updates and they can still get newsletter and updates from us and still engage with us that way and keep up to date with our work, but not be a member and have their membership be reflected on our website, for example. So, that's one way that we can do it, but I think that's a good point that we need to consider going forward. And then, yeah, about your second question, I think we'll have to be a bit more clear. So apologies for that. But the current the current form, I did it again. The current form is for those colleagues that want to be part of the membership going forward, to confirm that you want to be part of the membership and still stay on the listserv and everything like that. The survey was to gain insights from TAP members previously into how they wanted to, to engage with the membership and its work. So the current thing that we have open right now is that form. We also do have a separate survey for all of you to contribute your thoughts and ideas on a revision of the Goal 16 advocacy toolkit going forward. That's one thing that we're going to take forward next year or early next year. And so we want your insights and feedback into, what's the best approach for how we put together a new SDG 16 capacity building toolkit. So we do currently have multiple things open right now. The form, the most important one, the subject of this call, is to confirm your membership within TAP. And then there's a separate survey if you want to provide feedback for the Goal 16 toolkit revision, you can do that as well. But hopefully that clears things up.
Does that answer your question, Marianne? I mean, are you less confused now?
Oh, I think I understood that. The only thing is that I don't remember whether I filled that form or not. So I can fill it again to make sure, unless you tell me, okay, go there and you can see whether you already filled it.
Yeah, I've gotten many questions about this too. So if you're not sure if you filled it out, I would just say go ahead and fill it out again. It doesn't hurt to submit multiple requests. That would be fine. But if you do want to just reach out to us at the Secretariat, we can also just double check. So for those of you that aren't sure if you filled it out, you can feel free to just reach out to us and we can quickly check for you and let you know if you filled it out or not.
Thank you, John. In terms of further inputs and question to you all in the call, I mean, as John alluded to, one of the key takeaways from the engagement survey was that there seems to be a desire at your end for more bottom-up engagement and more direct engagement by you as a TAP member. So the question to you is, how do you want to give shape to that? I mean, what is the engagement you are foreseeing for broadening or deepening your engagement with the TAP network? What kind of mechanisms would that entail, and what kind of opportunities do you see? And this is for all in the call. Yeah, please come in and provide us with your feedback on this. Yes, John, please unmute yourself.
I'm John. I'm also John. I don't know whether I'm the one.
Yes, I was seeing you unmuting yourself. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm really very grateful to be part of this meeting. As I have already introduced in the chat that I'm working with a local NGO, and our main focus is to do with the food security, environment justice, and the land right. That's where our focus is. But now, what I would like to know that our objective, our vision, mission, and objective are similar to TAP now, and we have been doing some work in our organization. But I would like to see how our engagement at the local can be upscaled to a global level, so that TAP is felt at the grassroots, and then even and also what we do contribute directly to TAP globally. That's where I want to get it clear, so that how do we marry the two, so that both sides can understand each other, can whatever is felt, TAP feel as we are part, and our organization feel that it is part of us. That's what I wanted to.
Thank you, John. If I understand you correctly, your question is both directed at how to link the national or the subnational with the international level, but also how to upscale and how to broaden the activities that you engage in Uganda at the larger scale, whether it's in the East African region or whether it's at the Uganda level. I think, I mean, first and foremost, from the point of view of the steering committee, I think it starts with information sharing and knowing what is happening through the members, and also harvesting maybe more optimal what is happening around the membership of the TAP network. And for that, we need members also to engage and to share and to update us on activities that they do, obstacles that they face, and opportunities that they see. And I do think that, and having that in hand, then automatically can be linked to, okay, can we bring you in contact to potential peers within the country, within the region, within the sub-region, that can potentially support your endeavors, or where you can link up and maybe exchange lessons learned. But yeah, let me also hand over to John. I mean, maybe you want to add something from the secretariat level?
No, I think that's just, those are great questions. I mean, that's kind of the whole conversation that we want to have today and going forward is how do we make those connections? I don't think there's a perfect solution for either of those options, but as Peter mentioned, yeah, we can still do some things to advance some of that work, and that's what we want to hear from you, is what makes sense for you. How do you intend to work with that? What added value can we provide as a network? And then concretely, how can we actually facilitate those connections?
Any other responses? I don't see hands popping up, so you have to become a little bit more active. Ahmed, you're next in my screen. Please.
Hi, Peter and John. Thank you very much and all. The question is clearly, I want to know whether in the engagement strategy, the TAP has any plan to strengthen the national constituencies and the regional constituencies. If it has any plan, and then the question is, the strengthening the constituencies, national or regional, then that really needs resources. So what's the resource plan, and whether there is any plan TAP Secretariat can, strengthen the national and regional constituencies, whether there any plan and, resource links. Thank you.
John, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so this is a good question. Again, something that came from the consultation on membership engagement previously, is that many of you wanted to see more engagement amongst yourselves within a particular region or a particular country. In the past, we've done this through regional focal points, where colleagues have either one or two colleagues in a particular region have taken the lead in helping to coordinate and facilitate engagement of members in that region. That's one idea for us to, potentially explore going forward. And again, I think one of the things that has come out from not just this past consultation, this past survey, but previous surveys as well, is this desire to potentially have national focal points as well. So to hone in on what happens at the national level. But I do think that we need to take into consideration maybe things that already exist in some of these regions or countries. Maybe, there's not necessarily a need to create something new in a country if there's already an active network of organizations working on SDG 16 or accountability, for example. So I think this will have to be on a case-by-case basis on how we take things at the national level, but perhaps it might be a good start, to take a look at how we engage at the regional level, and then have colleagues kind of explore, where the opportunities are at the national level. But this is exactly why the TAP membership refresh is also so important. It's for us to know where our most active members are and where we can then potentially explore where to deepen our engagement in a particular region or a particular country. So again, really encourage you to, if you haven't already, just fill out that membership engagement, the membership refresh form. And then, that's one of the things that we'll explore as the steering committee and secretariat on what does that regional and national engagement look like?
And just to add on to that, what John said, I mean, one of the questions that we asked in the membership engagement is also where you're based and where your activities are being held and implemented. That will help us to also map out who of the members is active where, and that we can do a global membership mapping, and maybe also connecting the dots between various network-based organizations that are also engaged in the membership. And I think that is also to avoid duplication and then seeking alignment and coordination between members, whether they're international members with national activities or national based or locally based organizations, and making the connections work is, I think, also something that the steering committee wants to look into. I want to go to Ayolat. If I pronounce your name correctly, please unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, please.
Oh, yes. I'm really excited about TAP, but I've not really been able to engage with you properly as of yet. So I'm really happy for the refresh. We have a number of projects in Africa. So we've got a project with the River Nile Basin. We have projects developing in South Africa. We've got projects in Kenya to do with, because we're about natural resource economics and working with local communities, which is very much based on SDG 16, promoting peace and inclusive societies. But how do we, I'm just trying to think, we're very interested in CSR, corporate social responsibility and accountability. So getting corporations to be more accountable regarding their natural resources and how they're engaging with local communities. So we have a specific project in South Africa where there's a water scarcity issue. There's mining companies that are abstracting water, and we're trying to work with the local community and with the mining organizations to try and find some solution. So I just wondered, you mentioned regional networks, is there, any networks we can collaborate with to just get that accountability of maybe national, government dialogue, maybe a joint report or some sort of, maybe we could start a campaign that looks at water scarcity and accountability of corporations and government. But I was just wondering, is there a way of linking into the voice of the TAP? Can we start a campaign and get members to sign petitions or to say, yes, we support this endeavor? What support can you get for the projects? We've got many that we would love to share with the network, but we want to do it where it's in line with your vision and purpose. So.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question immediately before handing over to John. And did you submit your form, and did you include this information in the membership refresh survey?
Yeah, I have submitted my form, but I haven't included this. So I'll probably resubmit again and put this in.
Okay. John, any responses from your end?
Yeah, I think in terms of regional coordination, currently we do have listservs for TAP network partners located in different regions. So we have these kind of regional working groups. They haven't been active over the past year or so since the HLPF last year. But again, this is something that we wanted to explore. Is this feasible? Is there still are there still colleagues that are willing to engage in these working groups and through these listservs? So it's one of the things that we'll look at going forward, is kind of reinstituting these working groups, and how do we do that? And I think actually this is a good point to make, that these regional working groups can also be a bit more independent. It's up to those colleagues engaging in the working group on what the priorities could be and what the activities could be. And it doesn't necessarily have to rely on a response from the secretariat here at the global level, which we also have limited capacity to focus on a lot of different things. So I think this is also a way for, if you do propose this to a working group, for example, a regional working group or whatever it may be, if there are colleagues that are interested in helping advance this, that can be explored through those means. And you can, it helps to instill a little bit more ownership, but also a little bit more buy-in from, again, having that bottom-up engagement. So the short answer, we do have mechanisms in place currently, but we're going to have to explore how we actually revive those going forward in the best way.
Thanks, Tom. Next on my list is Laurie. I see your comment in the chat, Laurie. Do you want to speak to that, or you have a different intervention? Please go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't put a comment in the chat. I don't know if that's someone else.
Oh, that might be another Laurie then. Sorry for that. Apologies. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I just wanted to share some perspective from Child Fund regarding our very limited engagement this year. We, like many others, needed to have an emergency response for COVID, and that really shifted the focus of much of our operations this year. Continuing our ongoing programming, but really needing to have more of an emergency response globally. So the emphasis on the SDGs and HLPF, while there, really were mostly relegated to myself as a UN representative and the focus on New York. And so it made it quite challenging to even have any of our members globally try to engage at all through networks like TAP, because it just couldn't be prioritized because of capacity challenges. I think also for myself, part of what's happened is, Child Fund really wasn't a remote working type of organization. And for us, with everybody having to work remotely, specifically with TAP, even the meetings, when meetings were scheduled, conflicted with all of my internal Child Fund meetings and other sort of emergency meetings that we had to have for the Eastern time in the morning. So it's been virtually impossible for me to attend any of the meetings that you've had all year. I mean, I think this is the first or second one I've been able to attend, and only because something else dropped out at the last minute. So I just wanted to share that from our perspective, we do want to be engaged, and I'm hoping that as we go into next year, it's going to normalize a little bit more. But from our perspective, I just wanted to share that that is what's been going on from us, from our end. And we do appreciate the work that TAP does, and we do want to be engaged. But until COVID is a bit more, less of an emergency response for us, that's just sort of where we're at. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Laurie. I'm hearing you loud and clear, but also interested to hear from you whether you would see any other engagement opportunities or other engagement mechanisms which could be beneficial for you to still tap into the resources and experiences of the network, or contributing by some of the learnings of your engagement in the COVID fields. I do think that the COVID pandemic has its enormous relevance also for the work we do on SDG 16 and vice versa. So it would be good to also hear more on how you see other engagement opportunities, or sharing some of the lessons over the last couple of months through your organization with the wider network.
I do think that definitely will be possible. We've been going through a process of collecting information on our responses and holding internal webinars and things on some of the programming. We also have a joint response that's going to go for, I think, 3 years in multiple countries in Africa. That is a joint project with what's called the Joining Forces organizations, which would be Child Fund, SOS Children's Villages, Save the Children, World Vision, Plan International, and Terre des Hommes, and it's funded by the European Union. So that's going to be quite a large project on ending violence that's associated with the COVID response. So there definitely will be things coming out of that as that continues, we'll be able to share. And I'm interested in the toolkit and some of the other things that that TAP has, and hopefully we can be more engaged in that. And as some of these lessons are coming in at the end of the year, I can also share that with TAP.
John, you want to come in and respond further, or I see you, not sure it's you or Claudia providing comments in the chat box, but.
Yeah, just on this, I mean, I think this is something that we're going to have to think about when we think about membership engagement going forward, is how do we ensure that the things that we have, coordination mechanisms, working groups, whatever it may be, are effective enough for us to make those connections between, again, the global and the national and the local, and vice versa. And make sure that we can maintain those deep connections, and then have colleagues have that bottom-up engagement and ownership, but also at the same time be somewhat light touch, so that colleagues that don't necessarily have the capacity to engage, or quite frankly the time to engage, every one of you has full-time jobs on top of engaging with TAP on a voluntary basis. So I think we need to be sensitive to that in anything that we put forward. Just to ensure that we're being, making sure that the means of engagement that we have are as efficient as possible, but still provide the added value that colleagues want to see out of them. So I think this feedback is really helpful, but going forward with the steering committee and secretariat, I think we'll have to really take this into consideration going forward.
Who else can I give the floor? Any other raised hands or comments people want to share? Shaima, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hello, can
Yes,
you hear me? Okay, this is Shaima from Yemen. I am from Improve Your Society organization, and we are one of your members. I'm so glad to be with you. As I was with you and I heard you that you focused on digital life and how it works good with COVID pandemic life. And then you talked about advocacy and and accountability. Really, here in my city, especially in Taz, you know that we are going through the war plus the COVID problems here. We're trying to start working on the projects of this kind of things that can help people to build up peace and improve the youth abilities here in my country. But my question here is, how can you give me like a piece of advice? How can we improve these kind of projects in a kind that can be activated as a TAP member? Or can I have like some ways of connection with the other members in the TAP network, so we can share our ideas together and talk about what did we experience in doing these projects, and take the experience from each other? Thank you.
Thank you, Shaima. Allow me to invite you also to share more information on what you're doing in the context of Yemen with the Secretariat. For information, my organization, the organization that I coordinate, has an active program in Yemen and works together also with organizations focused on the involvement of young people in the peace process and in peace building activities. So that is an obvious link that can be made, and I can link you up to our local partners in Yemen. I don't know where you're based in Yemen, but that should not be a problem. John, anything to add from your end?
Yeah, again, this is, again, highlighting the fact that we need to work on having mechanisms and platforms for you all to engage with one another. I mean, I think this is a prime example of where, you know, there's an obvious need from an organization and something to offer, and then, you know, an opportunity for more collaboration going forward. So again, nothing really concrete now, but I think this is something we'll be working on as the steering committee and secretariat on how do we, what do those platforms look like? So yeah, I think that feedback's really helpful.
I don't see any more hands. Any further inputs, questions, comments people want to leave on this?
I have my hands up. It's a long time.
Okay, I don't see that. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, because there is no sign. There is no hands up sign. It's only thumbs up, and I did it.
Apologies, Ahmad. The floor is yours.
No problem. I don't know, maybe computers are different or something. Laurie, I think, asked about some kind of UN toxic pollution work. That is exactly what I've been doing, you know, for long time, 3-4 decades, you know, working on pesticide chemicals regulation for developing countries as a scientist, and also on SDG 12, you know, SCP, sustainable consumption and production, and mostly, you know, concentrated on the chemicals regulation just to help. And so I need help and cooperation for this work after a long time. I have some things, if you search also my name on impact and effects of toxic pollution on wetlands and on migratory birds, including a webinar that I did last October for the SWS, Society of Wetland Scientists. So it's a very wide work about the toxic pollution reduction and regulation for helping people, environment, and wildlife. And I'm available, you know, I just want to help, and this is the work that I've been doing and need support also from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad, and sorry for not noticing that you had your thumbs up instead of a hand up, but obvious links to be made. And this again, I think, underscores the wealth of expertise that we have within the network and the opportunities for cross-linking between what individual organizations are doing and how they can potentially link up with colleagues and peers to further the work that they're doing. Laurel McFarland, I saw you unmuting yourself, but I'm not sure whether you also have problems with raising your hand. Do you want to come in, or? If not, then I did see that.
I'm sorry, Peter, I'm happy to respond. What would you like to know?
No, I thought that you were asking for my attention because I saw you unmuting, but I'm not sure whether you wanted to raise your hand. I didn't see your hand, so.
No, I've been following the conversation. I think I've been making some comments in the chat about our organization's interest in the education activities of the TAP network and trying to figure out how best to support those and engage with colleagues who are in the business of SDG 16 education.
Yeah, noted. Thank you for that. John, anything from your end?
No, I mean, just to kind of summarize and wrap up on my end, is that, I mean, I think the main message that I think I get from this call, at least, is that the focus from all of you, at least, on this call has been around the need for connecting with one another, having platforms to see, where the current opportunities, not just from TAP, but what are others doing in this space, and you have some projects, things that you might also need some support or partnership on. How can you share that with others, and how can you kind of start to build partnerships amongst network members? I think this is something that we've flagged, obviously, from the consultation, something we're going to discuss anyways. But I think for me, at least, my takeaway from this meeting is largely around that. How do we make sure that the mechanisms and working groups or platforms that we have are responsive to that? Also, I'm very appreciative of that myself from the Secretariat perspective, because I think that also helps ensure that all of you are the ones that are leading TAP's work. I mean, those of you that work with networks before know that the Secretariat has a limited capacity. It's just myself and one other colleague at the moment. So we obviously have limited capacity on our end to take on a lot of different things. And so I'm really grateful that there seems to be a lot of interest in having ownership of this work, actually having this peer-to-peer engagement, and then seeing where that takes all of you and takes the network's work. So I'm really happy that there is this interest, and right now it's about how do we create those platforms that facilitates the most efficient means of engagement between all of you individually. And so again, I think that should, when we do, as the steering committee and Secretariat, look to take this forward, I think that's kind of the main takeaway from this call, at least for me. But thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John. I suggest that we move over to any other business, things that people want to mention or announce or didn't mention in the previous part of the meeting, but still think that needs to be said. Anybody?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Hello? Yeah, it's Youssoufa.
Youssoufa, please go ahead.
Yeah, from Senegal. I'm from the organization Enda Epopop from Senegal. I would like to mention something. We are a partner of network, TKP network, for almost a year, but so far we do not feel a real integration of the structure. For example, our logo still does not appear on TAP website, even though the organization information was sent in November 2019. Also, we had proposed action to be implemented in the French-speaking countries of West Africa, but since then we have not felt any evolution from TAP network, and we would like to know if this request can be get more information about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Youssoufa. John, you want to directly respond to?
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Youssoufa. So this is also another thing that I think we will take a look at as well, the membership, the difference between members and partners, and how do we promote who is a member and who is a partner. So we'll take a look at what that looks like going forward. But currently, members, we don't really have a really efficient and clear way for showcasing who is a member. Again, the list that we have is largely internal, largely because of EU GDPR regulations. We can't necessarily share information publicly with colleagues. We have to find a way to ensure that people's privacy and information is protected, but also make sure that we're promoting that colleagues are part of the network by, like you said, having logos on websites. We'll take a look at how we do that going forward. But if you have direct concern, you can always reach out to us. at the Secretariat, in case your logo isn't included. If you are a TAP partner, again, we don't have logos for TAP members currently, but TAP partners should be on there. So please feel free to reach out if you're a partner and it's not included. Yeah, I think for French translation and translation to other languages in general, I think this is a challenge for us, given that our current operational language is English. It is something that we'll have to consider when we look at membership engagement structures. Also, I do think that potentially if we do engage at the regional or sub-regional level and have working groups like that, maybe that might also help handle or tackle the language barrier, since maybe similar language, colleagues speaking similar languages will be in some of those sub-working groups, for example. But again, this is a notable challenge for us that we're also going to take a look at, how we ensure that we're a bit more inclusive with our work to not just operate in English, or if we operate in English, how do we also expand our work to colleagues that speak other languages as well. So it's a good point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else with any other business? If not, I suggest that we close the meeting, and the meeting comes to an end at the scheduled time. So once again, thank you all for participating in the meeting. I'm looking at John to see whether we indeed will get a kind of a summary report of what has been discussed and the ideas that have been shared. I think that also in the chat there were a lot of very useful comments made, which we will certainly harvest and also reflect on in the steering committee meeting that will happen next. John, any final remarks before we close?
Yep, just in terms of next steps on this, yes, we will share notes from this call and also a recording as well, in case colleagues weren't able to join and actually want to go through the whole meeting themselves. So we'll follow up with that in the coming days. Yeah, in terms of the next steps from here for the steering committee and secretariat, again, this was a really helpful call to help us, again, help digest some of your needs and some of your thoughts on how we engage with the membership and how you all engage with one another. So going forward, the steering committee and secretariat will now take the insights from this call and from the consultation previously this year and really look to take this forward, have some really concrete next steps and decisions that are taken about what does this look like for next year. A lot of these things we likely will start to take forward over the next few months, like maybe some of the working groups, for example, will start to gauge an interest from all of you in being part of these working groups, and then look to maybe start some of these activities early next year. So right now, again, we'll take the results of this conversation and the consultation and turn it into a membership engagement plan. We'll share that with all of you once we finalize it as well, just so you all know where the decisions have been taken and how you all can engage going forward. And we'll also try and be a lot more clear on where the opportunities are. I know that there's a lot going on within TAP and a lot going on within your own organization, so we'll try and be as clear and efficient as possible in our communications with you. But we'll share all of this information from this call and from the discussion with the steering committee and secretariat going forward. So thanks again, everyone.
Okay, with that, I formally close the meeting. Thank you all once again for attending the meeting. And for those who haven't done so, please fill in the forms that were shared with you before the deadline, please. Thank you and hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Peter.